Now we're going to take a look at one of the simpler transformations, that of changing the name of the data as it goes from source to destination. And also we're going to look at converting data. So we'll look at these right now. As you write your ETL code, you need to come up with a nice looking professional pattern of writing your code. At least I believe that's true. It makes the code easier to maintain. It makes it easier for other folks to be able to look at it. So I would start off by just listing out what data I'm trying to access. In this case, I'm trying to access just some data from the titles table in the pubs database. I would list out my column names to get started. Then I would go ahead and remove columns that I'm not going to be using in my transformation. Now, it sounds like a lot of work to do that, but I got to tell you, it's not that bad. You can have the system go through and create a script for you like this. So let's see here. Where are you, pubs? There you are. Go down here. We'll find the titles table. I'll right-click and say, select the top 1,000 rows. And you can see it wrote the code for me. So it doesn't take that long to get started like that, and then you just take out the stuff that you don't think you're going to use. Doctor up the code, and then paste it someplace. I think I actually kind of like it like this instead. I'm going to hold down the Alt button and left click and drag. That way I can move it all over. And yeah, that looks like, well, that looks like what I have here. Then the next step is to go through and do a very simple thing. Is put a column alias. Now, a column alias doesn't actually transform the data as such, but when you're using certain tools for the ETL process, it does make things easier to work. Later on, when we start using SSIS, you'll see that there's it's actually kind of handy to have the names of the columns be the names of your destination database columns. So you'll notice that I'm changing the names to make them more legible for my report builders. And in the process, I did so by creating a new column name in my dimension tables. So as I go through and select the data, I can apply those new column names using column aliases. Again, you don't see much difference here, but it adds up in it helps out in small little ways. This style is an older style. It's been around for a long time. It's still practical to use it. Another style is to go ahead and put the column alias on the left-hand side of an equal sign instead of the right-hand side of the as keyword. This does exactly the same thing. This is just a newer style. I didn't always like this particular style, but I have to agree with I had a boss once that wanted me to do this, and I have to agree that once you get used to it, it's kind of nice to have everything lined up on the left. It makes it easier to read the code long term. So, but choose whichever style you want. It doesn't really matter. Another very simple transformation that you do is converting data types. And similar to what I just showed you, there is an older tool and a newer tool, or older way of doing it and a newer way of doing it. The cast command has been around for a long time. It's actually a standard part of the SQL language, and it's used in many other database products besides just SQL Server. In this case, I say cast whatever data I want to cast as, and then the data type I want to cast it to. Cast title as, cast type as, and so on. The reason why I'm actually performing these transformations are talked about in your book, so I'll go ahead and leave the reasons out. But you can see that working with cast is pretty simple. In this case, I'm casting data from one table to another, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out the publication ID key. Now let me explain that a little bit. Originally, the original database had a publisher ID in the titles table. But often when you build a data warehouse, it's considered best practice to include a surrogate key. This is another artificial key that is unique to the data warehouse. When you do so, you'd end up, instead of publisher ID linking the tables together, something like publisher key linking the tables together. But I have to get that publisher key in my ETL code. I also have to fill up the dim publishers table first, because if I don't, if that table's empty and I run this code, I get nothing. It's because this asks the question, is it true that the publisher ID in one table is equal to the publisher ID in the other table? And if that's false, you get this, you get no answer. What I need to do is I need to actually go through and fill up the publishers table before I do this. So let me insert some data into the publishers table using this select statement. Publisher ID, publisher name. 8 rows are added. And now when I go back over and select against this, I'll actually get some data. Now these numbers look different than the ones we just saw a minute ago, a second ago I should say, but these are the new artificial numbers. These are what they call a surrogate key value. So very, very simple, but anyway, that little lookup there is good to know about. A common mistake people make is to go through and try to link those tables together with having one of them empty and coming up with a blank value like that. It happens all the time, especially on the fact table. Just a tip on that, because when you guys do the modules exercises, hands-on activities, that is a very common mistake. Wondering why the fact table isn't filled. It's because one of the dimension tables is not. Okay, that's it for this one. Next on the list, we're going to talk about transforming data values. See you there.